January ANC3 January 2019 ANC3F monthly meeting. This is sort of a new commission tonight, so I'm going to just quickly ask, rather than going through community announcements or commissioner announcements, just for a quick introduction from each of the single-member districts, since we have three new commissioners tonight, and I'd just like to welcome each of them. But let's go ahead and just do a quick introduction.
Andrea Molad, ANC3F 05.
Carolyn Keebler, ANC3F 02.
David Dickinson, ANC3F 01.
Naomi Ruttenberg, ANC3F 03.
Monica Nemeth, 3F 06.
Leah Frelinghuysen, 3F 04.
So let me again welcome Leah, Monica, and Caroline to our commission. Congratulations. And we've already met once sort of socially and
Sorry guys, I'm going to have to do it without the mic.
yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Rachel, the mic is still working for the recording?
Yes.
Okay, just not for the room. Beautiful. Thank you.
I wanted to also, in addition to congratulating and welcoming our new commissioners, thank Ms. Juanita Gray for finding us this wonderful room. So thanks to Juanita and the University of District of Columbia for affording us a really nice space. I look forward to the summertime looking out over Connecticut Avenue and whatever's happening with the reversible lane or not. But
We can do some of the traffic study during our meetings.
We'll put that further on the agenda, but thank you, and please pass along our gratitude to the leadership of UDC. Thank you. Okay. So some of you may have our agenda. We typically divide it into two primary parts, a consent agenda and then our regular agenda. The consent agenda is meant really for us commissioners to save time and to save all of you time, that you don't need to hear some of the deliberations on some of the bread and butter stuff that we're trying to do, especially with the new commission and the new year. There are a few things on the consent agenda. So, and we also go through the practice of modifying it as necessary. I think there are a couple of modifications probably needed tonight. So let me just walk through it quickly, and then we can make any motions for modifications. On the consent agenda, there's a motion or approval of the new leadership of 3F. I called it the board, but I don't know if you want to call it something different, but the chair, vice chair, treasurer, and secretary. There's another motion for the committees that exist within 3F. A motion and approval of our monthly meeting dates. We'll meet on the third Tuesday of each month, with the exception of August and December. And a motion and approval of our annual security fund. Let me pause. Well, let me finish on the regular agenda. Then we have our normal commissioner updates, our committee reports from our three committees, a community forum for any of you in the audience to bring forward announcements or any issues that you'd like to bring to our attention. Then we do have a general update from the City Ridge project, Lakeside Development. I don't think they're here tonight yet, but they will be. We have a Somstock ABRA application. Typically we might put that in the consent agenda. We didn't ahead of time, so we'll probably keep it on the regular. There is a UDC WMATA UPass smart card program. I'm going to make a motion to delay that discussion until February, but we can come back to that. December 2019 minutes, other business, and then our adjournment. So I'm going to go ahead and start by suggesting that we remove item 11, the UDC smart card UPass, from discussion tonight. Rather than making a motion and taking a vote on that, why don't we take all the other changes, right? Any other changes?
Yeah, I'd like to add approval of our quarterly financial report for FY19, quarter one.
Do you want to add that to the other business, or do you want to do that in consent agenda? Given that we didn't announce that, I think we might want to just put that.
We can do it on other business. It will be very quick.
Okay. Any commissioners, any other amendments? So a motion just to eliminate item 11, the UDC smart card discussion. Have a second?
Second.
Any All those in favor?
Aye.
6-0 in favor of removing that. So let's go ahead and start with the consent agenda. And again, I think I've already talked through them.
Maybe you might want to just say what the content, who are the officers, who are the
Yeah,
committee
yeah.
chairs? Yeah. those
Anything
two
else,
things.
Andrea, you wanted to do on that?
Nope.
Okay, so for the second item on the, or the first item on the consent agenda are the board officers, or the
Officers.
of 3F. We've discussed this internally. The chair will be myself, David Dickinson. The vice chair will be Carolyn Kubler. The secretary will be Andrea Malode, and the treasurer will be Naomi Rutenberg. Moving on, there's another motion or to approve the, sort of reapprove the existing ANC3F committees. Just briefly, those are the Streets and Sidewalks Committee, the Parks and Trails Committee, and the Grants Committee. Moving on to the next item in the consent agenda, the approval of the monthly meeting dates. Again, those would be the third Tuesday of each month. We can change those as needed, but they don't look to conflict with any holidays. We will not be holding a meeting as of now in August or December of 2019. And then finally, there's a motion to approve the annual 2019 ANC3F Security Fund, which is in an amount of $25, I believe. So just making that, I don't think we need to, any observations on the consent agenda before we move on. Okay. Let's go to commissioner updates and
We have to
announcements.
We have to approve it.
We have to approve the consent agenda.
Okay.
Need a motion.
Let's make a motion. I make a motion to approve the consent
I
agenda.
second the motion.
All those in favor of approving our consent agenda?
Aye.
Any opposed? 6-0. Our regular agenda. And then we'll move to commissioner updates and announcements. Leah, would you like to start with anything happening in your district?
Well, I have nothing to report. My first meeting, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Leah Freelingheisen. I am a resident of 3F04 as of about almost 2 years ago. Moved here from downtown, and we really love this neighborhood. And I'm thrilled to be in this, serving everyone in 3F04 in this capacity.
Monica?
Hi, everyone. My name is Monica Nemeth, and I am the new commissioner for 3F06. And I live over on Alton Place, not too far away on the corner of Reno and Alton. I've been in my house now for just over 16 years, and I've been in DC for over 35 years. I just love DC. I love this community, and I'm very happy to be serving my community.
Any announcements?
And I have, other than being the new commissioner, I don't have any specific announcements for 3F06 this evening.
I have no announcements.
No announcements. I'm going to skip myself.
Carolyn Keebler, 3F02. I live over at Van Ness North. I've been in that building for going on 30 years now, so I know the neighborhood pretty well. I've always been kind of very active in that particular community and in the community as a whole. My two kids grew up here, so I know the school system. Traffic has been an issue. No announcements at this point, but again, I am really jazzed to be representing my ANC, my single member district, and the ANC as a whole. So I'm sure there'll be plenty of stuff in February to talk about.
Commissioner Malone?
I have one announcement, and that's related to an ongoing issue with noise coming out of Comet Ping Pong that I want to keep having it in the record that this is still an ongoing issue. We're still talking with them rather than no calls to DCRA have been made yet or anything or ever, but it's getting close despite how
When are they
friendly we
renewing
are.
their?
Is it the bands or is it people noise?
It's the bands.
It's the bands.
It's the bands. So that's an ongoing issue.
Okay. I have just a couple quick announcements. I believe it was at our December meeting that there was a discussion on a traffic study regarding Upton Street. I know there's at least one neighbor here tonight, and they can certainly welcome to come up during the community forum. But I just wanted to announce on January 22nd, There will be a community meeting hosted by the Burke School. It'll be at the Burke Library at 7:30, again on January 22nd. There will be at least a few folks from DDOT that will be explaining the process going forward, looking at different variables associated with the traffic study. There, to my knowledge, and maybe some of our neighbors will inform us whether any speed limit signs, et cetera, have been installed yet. I don't think there have been, but I think the idea was that there be an opportunity for community input before traffic study's done. And just by the way, from what I understand, the district's DDOT might be affected by the furlough as well, so there may not be an ability to do a traffic study in the near future anyway. I think we have Ms. Gray from UDC that'll be talking a little bit about this Chamber of Commerce meeting on the 25th, if you can cover that. Some of you are also aware, more broadly, that DDOT is in the initial stages of conducting a comprehensive study, traffic study, overall study of Connecticut Avenue. We do have our chair from the Committee on on Streets and Sidewalks that might be able to give us an update, but as far as I know, I don't have an update. But just stay tuned. We're monitoring that. If anybody has information or wants to know what the next steps, we also have staff from Councilmember Che's office that might be able to give us an update as well. I believe that is it. So turning to committee reports, Bob, if you don't mind coming up and covering our streets and sidewalks, please.
This microphone. Sure. Do I need? Okay, good. So I have a little progress report to give the commissioners. I think I emailed this to you, David, but if you haven't, okay,
Yeah,
you all get it already?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
it's just a one-pager. Streets and Sidewalks Committee is looking for members, so please, if anybody's interested, send me.
You have paper copies?
Oh, you need paper, yeah, sure.
Some of us do.
No.
Hey,
Let's start this off right.
Yeah, let's go.
we're still sorting out some of the tech issues.
So,
Thank you.
we continue to do a couple of things. Getting to David's question about the hopeful DDOT Connecticut Avenue study, I don't have an update. Perhaps we'll get one later. All we know is that we hosted a meeting with DDOT at the end of November. They were great. They came and they talked to us about their draft scope document. They said it would be several months before they even got a contract to start a study. So it's going to be a while. When they finally start a study, it'll take another 9 months at least. So there's plenty of time to input. I believe they are supposed to be setting up some sort of an advisory group, and I'm hoping that this ANC will participate. That's what I reached out to DDOT about and haven't heard yet. So that it was alluding to a report. I have no report. They didn't get back to me. Other than the Connecticut Avenue study, most of what the Street and Sidewalks Committee has been doing over the last year and a half or a year roughly has been trying to follow up on about 200 items that we put into the DC311 system. We do know now that of the 250 items we put in, approximately 100 of them are still pending after roughly a year of being in the system. What we aren't able to figure out, and probably still need some help from DDOT with, is how to track those and how to try to prioritize those in some way. So that is our continued challenge, is getting DDOT to give us some help. Other than that, I'm glad to take questions, or I'm done.
Just a quick question. When do you think your first meeting will be?
Yes, the first meeting of this year, and we do meet on the second Wednesday of the month. First meeting will be February 13th at 7 p.m., hopefully in a room right over here in this corridor. Juanita from UDC is helping us with meeting space, so I don't have the room yet, but February 13th, and then usually monthly on the second Wednesday of the month.
Bob, I don't know if anybody's actually watching online, but can you give your email if you don't mind for
Sure,
contact?
I would be glad to give my email. It is B as in boy, dealing, DEYLING @mac.com.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Bobby, thank you so much for all of your work and volunteering. Really
And
appreciate it.
I hope the new commissioners will let me know if you have ideas about our committee and others, the other commissioners. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. Andy, I'm going to skip to grants if you don't mind. I'll come back to Parks and Trails. Do you want to, any updates on grants or what's coming in the spring?
Yeah, I have a motion to make related to grants, but if you want to do Parks and Trails first, go ahead.
Well, maybe you and I can do Parks and Trails
Okay.
together. If you'd like to start, then I can.
I don't know, you started.
Okay, so our Parks and Trails Committee looks at primarily 3 tributaries to Rock Creek, Broad Branch, Soapstone, and Melvin Hazen. We haven't been as active toward the end of last year as perhaps we'd like to be. Our current chair of the committee is Alex Saunders. We're looking, the ANC is looking for somebody that actually resides within our ANC to chair that as a matter of protocol. I plan to participate in that. I don't know if there will be others that will at least want to attend those monthly meetings. I'm hoping, a date to be determined, but I'm hoping that we will meet in February just to reestablish some continuity. We've historically met at the Forest Hills home, and I'll see if that is available. There are, I don't know if you want to highlight any particular issues that.
Well, one of the major issues, and David, I don't know if you know anymore, is the Soapstone Valley Sewer Rehabilitation Project. The committee was actually established to have input into some of the early, well, I guess it was the assessment of the EIS, and then to be, to explore some issues and be ready to comment when the report came out, and it's been years. And every time we ask DC Water and NPS, we sort of, the ball gets shuffled back and forth. So one of the reasons the committee has gone a little quiet is that was one of the main activities, and there just has not been any more to be done. The committee has also spent a fair amount of time looking at stormwater management issues originating in Hearst Park. There are also other community groups that are looking at the Hearst Park development as a totality, including the stormwater issues. So we've engaged a little bit on that, where we could have sort of a unique contribution and not duplicate what other community groups are. There's also interest, so it's been hard to get off the ground, just, you know, people being busy and doing more citizen science work, perhaps linking with UDC and some of their programs, and working in the stream valleys. DOEE has led some citizen science and things around frog counts and other kinds of activities and data collection that have been valuable, and I think people in the community have enjoyed it. So that's another opportunity for the committee to try to see if there's some more energy behind that.
Yeah, so just building on that citizen science, I do personally look forward to our committee re-energizing around these tributaries, and I know that we've got representatives from Lakeside Development that are looking over at Glover Archibald as well. I think it's just this missed opportunity. There's a lot of start-stops on Soapstone, just from what I hear, just rumor admittedly on what's happening with Glover Archibald, that there doesn't seem to be the energy and the progress needed there. Speaking for Hearst Park, which I've been intimately involved with, went on tours with several people from DOEE, along with from the National Park Service and some community members, looking at some really devastating stormwater erosion, creekside erosion. We've got a lot of partners in the neighborhood, not just this committee, but a lot of great developers, a lot of universities, a lot of citizen scientists from the schools, and a lot of environmental need in those areas. So, you know, opening the door to this and looking for people that can creatively think and also put the political pressure on the right people to move it forward is what I hope this committee focuses on in
So
part.
I think what we're both saying is this, we have a real resource in our ANC, 3 of these major tributaries into Rock Creek, and a lot of people are very passionate about the environment and the creek and the streams. And we're, as an ANC, we're very much interested in supporting some sort of community action activities around that, though the committee has struggled a bit over the last year or so to find, what that was that generated enough interest for us to really have some outputs. So we're very open to ideas, and the committee can go in all sorts of directions.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Malone on grants?
Yeah, so a reminder that our grant cycle is March into April, which means that grant applications are due on or before the March meeting for consideration and voting on in April. But the vocabulary related, there's been some complaints from the community about the vocabulary related to the application procedure. And there's one specific change to that vocabulary that I'm going to make a motion to amend that vocabulary. As it is now, the vocabulary says that the applications are due in March and 6 months later in September. I'm going to amend the vocabulary to say that they are due on or before the date of the March meeting. Okay, so I'm going to make a motion to amend that vocabulary.
Second.
Any other words on that? All those in favor of Commissioner Malone's motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, 6-0. So the idea would be that they would contact the grants committee and Commissioner Malone probably in February with what their ideas are?
On
just
or
sort of
before,
on or-
with an application for a grant, before, hopefully with enough time for us to iterate on the application if there are things wrong with it. But it's due by the March and September meetings.
So ideally, they'd reach out in February with an opportunity for iteration so that,
Right. Now that we vote on sensibly, should the language say something like at least 3 days before the meeting or something? Because on or before, could be 7/25 on the meeting date, which is.
If somebody wants to submit an application that morning, they can. The only problem is if there is an issue with it, and as it is, we can't issue the grant, then they're in trouble. And if they want help with iterating it and making sure that it's okay, they should do it sooner. Okay, so
well, is
that's,
there language in the directions that indicates that, hey, by the way, you can submit it the day of the March meeting, but
do you have a suggestion for the vocabulary, how that should be?
Make the submission date some days before the meeting, a week, whatever.
To allow for a review.
Okay,
Or at least a recommendation within the instructions saying.
yeah, I prefer a recommendation as well. Keep the hard date of the March meeting, but we recommend working with the grants committee with an opportunity for feedback leading up to the March meeting or something like that.
Yeah.
so it's due by, the applications are due by the date of the March and September meeting, but it is recommended to submit them at least a week before that.
Sure.
Yes.
Let's make a motion on that. I motion for the
I
friendly amendment.
accept the friendly amendment to the thing
Okay.
that we passed.
Great, perfect. Moving on from our committee reports, anything else on that? To our community forum, this is an opportunity for folks to come forward with announcements. Before Mr. Bardeen starts us, can you raise your hand if there are others that plan 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or so? So I'm gonna just kind of work this way across the room. Former Commissioner Bardeen, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm David Bardeen. My wife and I live at 4701 Connecticut, where we've lived, I believe, over 20 years. Before that, we lived 19 years in Chevy Chase. Early on, for 3 terms, I was a member of this commission, represented 3F04 on a different boundary on both sides of the avenue, and I served as chairman for the last 2 terms. I have 2 things to bring to your attention. One is a new report issued in December 13th, by the President's National Infrastructure Advisory Council. And this report challenges all of us, government agencies at the highest level, down to ANCs and individual property owners and property renters, to think of the possibility of a power outage, blackout, which is much, much worse than anything we've ever experienced. Hopefully it's worse than anything we're going to experience. But to think about something which might last for weeks or months. So all the good work that's been done up till now has been focusing on a direct go or a few days, sometimes a few hours, maybe a week, but this is asking for more. I'm going to be coming back to you time and again on this issue, particularly if you provide me with everybody's email address on your website, then I do what I used to do and send it to chairman and fellow commissioners all at once, but I haven't been able to do it with some of the new commissioners. In connection with that, but a little different.
You can be assured that the commissioners at ANC3F.com email distribution list will be updated, David.
God bless you, thank you. I want you to know, you may be interested I'm interested for this reason, but there may be additional ones. The Public Service Commission is holding a community forum on the afternoon of February 6th to hear about people's feelings about the service of Washington Gas Light Company, WGL. And I'm going to raise this possibility, which will turn in terms of partly on the vulnerability of the suppliers, the gas pipeline that supply Washington Gas Light, to a power outage because they use electricity, as well as a possible vulnerability of Washington Gas Light. Now, I'm going to try to get a written statement in advance, and I will, whenever I file it, I hope I do it before the 6th. I'll share it with all of you. And if it makes sense to you, I hope you will endorse it. And if it doesn't make sense, I hope you'll come at me and tell me what my problem is. I'm only going to have 3 minutes to talk orally, but you may want to participate in that. So that's my first point. Number 2, I learned today from the chairman of the Chevy Chase ANC, 34G, from Randy Speck. They have been extremely active, proactive about the future redevelopment or improvement of the Chevy Chase Community Center. And one of the things they're asking the city to do is to build into the revised center the possibility of a shelter in a time of disaster for people in the neighborhood. That's a very interesting and forward-looking idea, and I wish them success on that one. But when I ask myself, what would we do in our neighborhood? Well, I think that logical shelter maybe is a collection of buildings in which you are sitting right this minute. So I'd like to challenge this ANC, which is meeting here today and has had an office on the sea level much, much longer than it's ever held meetings here, to look into the situation at UGC, both as to how well it's designed today to weather all kind. I'm thinking of the power outage, but there are many other kinds of disasters that might happen. For those who don't know, they have a geothermal plant under the soccer field. They collect geothermal energy and they drive it to meet part of their power needs. They have various other things. So I think it would be a good challenge for the ANC in its consultations with the University of the District of Columbia to see whether this set of buildings would be available to people in the neighborhood in various kinds of emergencies where people need shelter. And those are the 2 points I have. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. If not, I'm going to wish you good night and go on to enjoy the snow.
I have a question.
By all means, Commissioner.
I'm wondering, how is the solicitation for proposals for that kind of shelter in place or emergency preparedness? How was that issued? I had not heard of this.
Well, generally, this is not my expertise. So take up. I don't even have a grain of salt to offer you or to offer anything about. But what's going on is that in this particular project up there, that community apparently wanted things done. They have a whole list of things, and I can send you all their report that they want done with that community center. And they use their ANC funds, I believe, and certainly their ANC intellectual and moral muscle to put together a big report. It's 150 pages. That's what I got today. And they just have pages 4 and 20, they have this reference to the resiliency, but there were a lot of things they want with that. And they wrote it all up. And then they went to the council member, Mary Shea, and to the mayor, and to the various powers that be. I mean,
So it came from the ANC? The solicitation came from,
the solicitation is by the government,
okay.
okay?
Federal or?
Presumably, the
DC?
Department of General Services working with the people who are in the recreation field, but I don't really know, okay? If you want to know, Randy Speck is the chairman, and I'll send you an email. I'll include his email address so you can
Okay.
contact him. I think it's a very good ANC. I liked him when I lived next to my commissioner on Military Road, and I like him now, and I've worked with him on a lot of issues. And I find out it's unusual, but why shouldn't you be unusual also?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, right? Now, you know, or if you don't know, let me tell you, you have an awful lot of money in your bank account. This is an ANC which has not spent money left and right on all of the things that some ANCs spend money on. So if you decided on a project like that or another one, and it was legally permissible, but you better check, you could conceivably hire a consultant to come up with a report and push the city.
Dave, let's follow up with Carolina
Yeah.
B. and Randy Speck and others, and that sounds great. Okay, thank you. That's
Have a
great.
good evening and a good meeting.
Thank you, David. Thanks for bringing that forward to us.
Juanita Gray, the University of the District of Columbia. Happy New Year, Commissioners and
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
residents. So just a few quick things. Classes have started. We've gotten off to a chilly start, but we have started last week. I don't have enrollment numbers for you for just yet. We still have some students that are registering, so I will give concrete enrollment numbers in our February meeting. The residential students have moved back to 3003 Van Ness and Ava Van Ness, and I can give you concrete numbers for that. We have 88 students at 3003 Van Ness and 50 students at Ava Van Ness. So we are at full capacity at both buildings. Speaking of the Van Ness properties, President Mason spoke at Van Ness North, which is the co-op building that Commissioner Keebler lives in, and she can probably speak on a meeting too. He had a very good turnout. There were about 50, 60 residents of the building. He spoke about what the university is doing, where we've been, where he plans to go, specifically in terms of the equity imperative. The residents were very excited about it. A lot of good compliments that he's received, we've received on our students and residents' life, and just the university in general. So, Commissioner, do you have anything else you'd like to say on that meeting?
No, other than I think the consensus of the attendees was that they were really impressed with the commitment that UD is showing to the community. And Bob, I don't know if you went to that meeting, but it was pretty impressive. That was a very positive reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm doing my best to pass it along to some of the other buildings in our complex. We're still kind of working out meeting times and stuff like that, but that will be passed along, and we hope to continue that relationship.
Thank you.
So,
One thing that was brought up, some of the residents in our community, as we all know, are a little bit well, not a little bit, some are elderly, and they are not necessarily computer savvy, so I am going to work with trying to get in contact with a lot of the buildings around here. I've done it in the past for some events. Some apartments or condos are a little hesitant for us to put advertisement for programs and events, but excuse me, I'm going to continue to try, and then I'll absolutely make sure that you all get information so you can post in your lobbies.
we talked about that brochure of community, amenities. and
I'm
things
working
like
on updating that,
Yeah,
so
that'd be
with the
awesome.
classes.
Yeah.
Two other quick things. As Commissioner Dickinson mentioned, the university will be hosting the DC Chamber of Commerce meeting on January 25th. That schedule has not been solidified, so I can't tell you if it's a completely closed meeting or if some portions are open to the public, but once I get that information, I'll make sure to send it to you, Commissioners. And then lastly, also at the meeting that we held at Van Ness North, a resident brought up the fact that some of our students from the law school went down to the southern border to help asylum seekers. Those 14 students will be presenting this Friday at 5 p.m. At the law school, room 515. They'll be doing a debrief of their experiences, what they saw,
At
how
what
they,
time?
5 p.m., 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. in room 515 at the
And
law school.
what's the date? I'm sorry, Juanita. I
That is
missed it.
this Friday, the January 18th. So if anyone is interested in the work that our UDC law students did with the asylum seekers at the southern border, feel free to go to that meeting. It's open to the public. And yes, are there any questions?
I just to build on the law school meeting this Friday, Joe Libatelli sends me emails on all the UDC law school events, and they're incredible. And I would really encourage you to get on his listserv, and he's at JLIBERTELLI, JLIBERTELLI at udc.edu. It's just terrific. It's such a resource in this community to attend those law school events. A couple other quick items. UDC and the community have a community task force that meets a couple of times a year. Do you have a projection of when that next meeting will be?
Yes, our last meeting was just in December, so we meet quarterly. The next meeting should be in March.
In March, and do you think that will be an opportunity, or do you envision an earlier opportunity to start learning more about the 10-year master plan
We should, by
process?
March, we should definitely be able to start talking about that, yes.
Terrific. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Gray, and thanks again for the wonderful hospitality. This is a beautiful room. Thank
And
you.
I do apologize to the community for, it was not the commissioner's fault of the last minute room change. I will take responsibility for that, so please excuse that, but I'm glad everyone made it.
I think you should be bragging.
Pulled it off.
Space.
So my question is this now a permanent?
Yes, for 2019, this is our space.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Ms. Cameron?
Good evening, everybody. It's Teresa Cameron with Van Ness Main Street, and welcome to our new commissioners and returning commissioners. Happy New Year to everybody. We're super excited about this upcoming year. Wanted to give the community and the commissioners a few updates of some of the things that we're working on. We had a really successful pop-up store in our space that's at 4340 Connecticut Avenue. We had 8 different vendors, 3 different weekends, and attendance was over 3,000 people total, so we brought a lot of new people into Van Ness. Our vendors were super happy, and it was great to have some different kinds of retail. We also had tree sales, and they went fairly well, and we also did some unique public art in front of our building with a giant 12-foot tree, and that was super fun. So we're evaluating that now and figuring out if we want to continue doing a holiday pop-up. There are a lot of holiday pop-ups in the district now, so we may do something different next year. Our farmers market will start up in May, so we'll be sending out applications for our non-food vendors, and so we'll be sending those out probably at the beginning of February. So if you know people who who are artists or craft makers in the district or the DMV, you can send them my way at info@vannessmainstreet.org. We're working with our businesses on planning some Valentine's Day events, and so stay tuned. If you don't follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, we'll be putting information on those as well as our website. We're also planning some new events called Alive at VN. We've had Jazz at VN over the last 2 years, and we're expanding, so we'll be doing lectures, we'll be doing different kinds of performances at our venues. We're working on setting those up now. One of them will definitely be a lecture by our jazz archivist. UDC has one of the best jazz archives in the United States, and people don't know that. So we'll be working with them to do that. We'll be working with the Washingtoniana collection, which is here temporarily to talk about some of the history of UDC. And we're also hoping to get Commissioner Mola to do lecture around some of her work at NASA, because it's very interesting. We'll also be doing some performances, some salons, so stay tuned. We'll be sending out emails about that as soon as we finish planning it. We're looking for volunteers for our committees. We have an events committee, a design committee, which is looking at our built environment, landscaping, and our economic development committee, which is looking at long-term economic development here in Van Ness, as well as our comp plan comments, which we made last year, and also changes to zoning. We want to try to make sure that zoning here really reflects being by the metro and makes it easier to go up. So some of our committee will be working on that. Also, some of the things we finished up over 2018 is at the corner of Albemarle and Connecticut. We installed new lights for our businesses there, and Lolly Gurris across the street has gotten a new sign that we paid for, and Digitree will be unveiling their sign and doing the ribbon cutting soon. And I think I mentioned at the last meeting we have 2 new businesses coming in. One is Uptown Market, which will be taking the place of Soapstone Market. We're really excited. They'll have many of the same kinds of activities as Soapstone, but a greater opportunity for prepared foods and meet and greet place. And People's Pharmacy, which will be across the street where the Embassy Dry Cleaners was. It's a small local pharmacy. I don't know much more about when both of these guys will be finished with their renovations, but they'll definitely be coming in soon. The last thing is that, as you know, we got $1.5 million in the DDOT budget to do planning for our stormwater and streetscape improvements. DDOT is starting to work on developing with us some community meetings around that, so we'll let everybody know when those are going to occur. So we can start planning together and getting community input as we move forward. So that's all I've got.
Any questions?
Oh, and I guess one more thing is just thanks to everybody who was so upset about 4250 and the non-sidewalk clearing. That building is still managed by Fannie Mae until the end of the month, and they did not clear the sidewalks, so it was really, really bad. It was the ice capades this morning. So our clean team, which works with us from the district, and I went out and we cleaned the snow. And so it's all clear there. So if you see the guys that are in green with a like a yellow vest on, please thank them. That is not what they usually do. They do clean streets and sidewalks, but they don't clean like they did today. And so if you see them, please tell them thank you, because they just did an outstanding job. And we were able to get some help afterwards from Fannie Mae. I want to point out that Bernstein Management and UDC are not in charge of that building yet, so they had nothing to do with the street cleaning, or rather the sidewalk cleaning. So I just want everyone to know that they also were very aware and were right on the spot as well. So thanks to UDC and Bernstein also for taking that into consideration.
Teresa, when does UDC and
That will be the 1st of February.
1st of February?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Ms. Cameron, do you want to talk about the homeless issue there as well?
I can talk a little bit about
And
it.
before you do, thank you for your leadership.
Oh, thank you. So we had a meeting that Van Ness Main Street convened last week with Bernstein Management, who currently owns the building, UDC, who will be taking ownership as a renter in the building on February 1st. Also our Rich, who's from the mayor's office, Kelly, who's from Department of Human Services, I think. David Dickinson was on the call, as well as, I think, UDC Eric Thompson, and we thought it would be good to get everyone together to talk about what everybody's trying to do related to the space, because since it's been vacant and people haven't really been paying attention, we've had a lot of homeless people come and start living in the bays, which are actually on private property. So the property owner does have the right to remove them, but we didn't think that that's the right thing to do. So we all met on the phone, and there'll be signage posted, and January 29th there'll be a cleanup of the site. There will be people from DC who will help, and they're behavioral specialists, so it's a very gentle work with our homeless, but we need to clean that up. We have in the district, as you know, a lot of problems with rodents, and also a need for a lot of work with homeless, so we're hoping that this will lead to some good outcomes to help some of our homeless individuals in the neighborhood or new homeless individuals.
Thank you.
And about how many homeless people are occupying that space right now?
I think it's about 8.
Okay.
And one particular person does have a barring decree against him, and he is not supposed to be there. He knows that. So we're going to have to go and issue another decree for him, and that is a person who collects a lot of stuff. And so the city has issued that with the DC, with the building owner and the Department of Police. Now with the new ownership, we'll be doing another bearing for him.
Any questions from the audience on this? Anything? Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Thanks again. Please. I'm sorry, and then the lady behind you as well. Yep, that's fine. No, go ahead.
Oh, thank you.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Joan Schaefer, and I am a Washingtonian. I'm a Washington native. My family has owned a house at 30th and Albemarle since 1999. I currently live there with my 2 young children, and I myself and a neighbor of mine have been undergoing a traffic calming investigation questionnaire for the intersection of 30th and Albemarle. We've defined the perimeter as being 30th between Brand New and Albemarle, and Albemarle from 29th to 32nd. We have noted significant traffic problems in that area. Speeding, traffic volumes, cut-through traffic, pedestrian safety, and bike safety. A friend of ours was actually hit on her bicycle while at that intersection about 4 weeks ago. I myself live on the south side of Albemarle Street, and there is no sidewalk connecting my house to Connecticut Avenue, and there's no crosswalk connecting my house to the north side of Albemarle Street. So I daily have to cross the street with a double stroller, and the speed is a huge issue. So essentially we have conducted this questionnaire. We've had overwhelming support from neighbors, and we are going to be submitting it very shortly, within a week, to DDOT. So my goal tonight is to just bring some awareness to it and let you guys know that this is a real issue for us in the neighborhood, and neighbors have expressed that, you know, that neighborhood could have such a residential feel, and yet we're so separated from one another because of the really horrendous unsafe traffic issue. Yes.
Hi, so thank you for that. Will the commissioners have an opportunity to also review the questionnaire at the time that you submit to DDOT?
Sure. I'm new at this, so
As am I.
if you tell me who to submit it to and how to submit it to you, I will do that.
So I think, Monica, this is your assistant?
No,
It's
it's
mine.
Yeah.
It's
It's Leah?
mine. It's my estimate.
Yeah. Naomi, do you have any questions then?
Well, first, thank you, Joan. Joan has written me before, and I have not responded. I apologize for that. I have reached out to DDOT, who has not responded to me, and then I returned to not respond to you, which was not very helpful. I appreciate that you have moved forward. I know exactly what you're talking about, in part because I live in the S&D, but also because every one of the streets that connects with Connecticut and goes down to Broad Branch is having the same concerns and issues. There's quite a bit of activity on Brandywine as they're trying to slow people down coming off of Broad Branch. The neighbors on Davenport,
Yes.
there are gaps without sidewalks that they're concerned about. And I guess what I would push harder, maybe you can help me with this, is to have DDOT come and see if we can.
Well,
And it links to streets and sidewalk, it links to the Connecticut study.
But I'm
and
also
the
thinking
sidewalk,
about
yeah.
the Upton Street meeting on January 22nd at Burke, on Upton Street, the Burke Library at 7:30 on January 22nd, that there will be the DDOT type people that might be helpful there.
Okay.
And we can certainly hook you into those people ahead of time. There certainly is a process here. I think ideally the ANC would want to hear from the whole community and make sure that based on our experience with the Upton Street concerns, it seems like having a lot of community input and having the right focus with DDOT moving forward would probably allow you to move forward more quickly, hopefully, as well.
Do you think that as we are talking to these neighbors, that there is a particularly effective, they're asking how they can help. So what should we tell them?
Here's somebody from Upton who I think is a great person to turn to.
Maybe you guys, if you don't, yeah, maybe you guys could talk afterward and
Perfect.
kibitz on that. That'd be great. We're trying to get through our community
Okay.
announcements.
And then I will plan to submit this to you when we submit to DDOT, or before?
Well, I don't think we need to review or,
Okay.
Yeah,
you
but
know,
we're happy to-
you know best that you were there, but thank you.
Okay.
I do appreciate your initiative on this
Sure.
and perseverance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else other than our last community speaker? And Sharon? Okay.
And Marlene.
And Marlene.
Can I just say something with respect to Joan, her effort, because I also live on 30th Street, and the people on the south side of 30th are an island, because they don't connect to Connecticut Avenue, and they need to be able to cross the street. So one of the things I think, Joan, they really want a stop sign at 30th, on Albemarle at 30th.
It's something that distinguishes Albemarle from the other streets. We had absolutely no stop sign
Right.
from 29 to 37.
Yep, yeah.
Lots of approaches and lessons learned with Upton as well, if you guys can speak. Well, let's go ahead and move on, please.
Hi, my name is Kathy Wiss. I'm a former commissioner of this ANC, and I've been on the Parks and Trails Committee, so I hope to continue on the Parks and Trails Committee. Here's my card. I work for the Audubon Natural Society, and we have had a team of students from Sidwell Friends School monitoring Melvin Hazen Run for over 20 years now.
Okay.
We also have other teams in 2 other ANCs doing water quality monitoring of Pinehurst Branch in Chevy Chase and Normanstone Run in Normanstone Woodley area of ANC3C. We recently issued a report about all these streams, and I'd like to share it with you. We have found over the years that our best quality stream in this area has been Melvin Hazen, but recently it's been in decline. I have to say, and Marlene was there at the time, our monitors happened to find an eel in Melvin Hazen Run, which was pretty spectacular, that the eels are able to at least come up that far and get into our streams. So just wanted to, yeah.
Sorry, is that a good thing or not a good thing?
It is a good thing. It is a good thing. Eels are part of the natural environment. What we actually, I should explain what we monitor for. It's for all the little tiny organisms that actually live in streams. So if the water is healthy, that means there can be more life. It's all part of the food chain. And the eels come up into the tributaries to grow. When they mature, they go out to the Sargasso Sea, and that's where they spawn. And then the little young all sort of start development in the Sargasso Sea, and then they go up into the tributaries on either side of the Atlantic. So it was good to find this eel. There's a picture in the report of the eel. So that was encouraging. We've talked about citizen science, and there are a couple more citizen science projects out there right now that I'd like to let you know about. One of them is a bacterial monitoring project that a consortium of groups led by the Anacostia Riverkeeper is going to be starting up in the spring. This is to monitor bacteria in the Potomac River, the Anacostia, Rock Creek, and its tributaries. And so we're expecting Soapstone and Melvin Hazen to be part of this, but we need to find volunteers to participate. So I have a sign-up list for anybody who is interested in learning more. If anybody, I'll pass it around if anybody's interested.
Is there a website where people can go to to learn about this?
There's several websites. I didn't bring our website. That's the reason I have this list passing around, because I can then get in touch with you. We're having 2 training sessions in April, one down in Southeast and one at our sanctuary, Wood End, which is in Chevy Chase, Maryland. It's just over the line. And what we need people to do is go out and collect a water sample from each of these tributaries on a Wednesday or Thursday. The reason this is midweek is because the results will be posted on the web in time for the weekend when more people are out on the streams to recreate. And the point is, whether people should have contact with the water or their pets, so that people can go and see how your creek is doing before you take your dog for a walk. So that's it. Right now, and I don't have this, but you can go on the internet. The Isaac Walton League of America is doing something called Winter Salt Watch. So we all saw all the salt being applied to our roads, and of course that all washes down into our streams. I went to a lecture last week in which we were told that our streams are almost as salty as the ocean. But the Isaac Walton League of America is passing out free salt test kits. So if you go to their website, you can get a salt test kit and test Melvin Hazen and test Soapstone or Broad Branch or any of the other creek streams you're interested in.
I think the Water Authority, WSSC, also keeps data on the salt quality in the water.
WSSC or WASA?
WASA, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, DC Water, yeah.
They may,
Yeah.
I don't know. But anyway, this is how you as citizens can participate and find out what your stream's salt content is and actually post it on the web for everyone to see. And I know I've had some people doing this, and they had pretty low readings before the storm. This is out at Little Falls, just across the line in Bethesda. Right after the storm, they got really high readings. They're less high now. So you have these huge pulses of salt, but they actually don't go away. They can be still fairly salty in May.
We look forward to working with you, and I hope we can arrange a time in February that's convenient for you, for the
Okay.
Parks and Trails Committee.
Okay,
and
Tuesday
things.
evenings are out for me for the next few months, but
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and I just in terms of contact, I know there's also the Audubon Naturalist Society at anshome.org.
Yes.
Another place to.
yeah, that's our website for anybody that wants to look at our website. And I use a Yahoo account for the committee, so they'll all get to me.
Thank you again. Any other questions? Okay. Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Other than Ms. Worthington, anybody else? And then I know we're going to go to the 3900 project next.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Sharon Worthington. I'm at 2912 Upton Street. We attended last month's meeting about the Upton Street traffic calming measures and the DDOT study that had come out. Since then, we have, with the neighbors that were affected, we've informed them of the meeting, the January 22nd, because that was one issue, is that some of the meetings were not being well distributed for time and place. So we have distributed to all the affected neighbors that DDOT said we should include for this meeting.
Right.
And the meeting will be the 22nd at 7:30 at the Burke Library. Burke has been very generous with their community. So that's all that we have right now. Jody and I will be in touch probably with the commissioners after the meeting to let you know, or of course you're all welcome because we don't have right now a commissioner for our region. So I don't have any additional
Thank you
information.
for the involvement, and please thank Jody as well. And speaking of the vacancy in your district, January 4th, the DC Register advertised that vacancy. Folks can go down to the DC Board of Elections now and get a petition with 25 signatures. Those signatures would be due around the 27th, and there's a challenge period. Then at our February ANC meeting, if there's only one candidate, that person would be deemed elected. If there are two or more candidates that are eligible and survive any challenges, then we would hold a special election in March.
Okay.
So please encourage those
I will
in
let
your
those
community.
in the meeting, and I will pass that information along.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for your efforts. Okay, I think that is it for community announcements, and we are going to move to our next agenda item, which is a general update of the City Ridge project, and I'd like to welcome Mr. Richard Lake along with his colleague, Mr. Robert Wolczewski. And just by way of introduction, Lakeside Development was here, I don't know how many months ago, at least
It's roadside.
roadside. I'm sorry.
I appreciate
I hear the lake, you know.
Stream
Yeah,
side,
Body of water.
seaside.
Any body of water will do.
Right. Well, this is your next project. But thank you again for attending our ANC3F meeting. You came at least a year ago, and I wanted to personally congratulate you on your ribbon cutting event, or your event in, sorry?
Our messy breaking.
Your rain event, donut eating extravaganza back in late November, early December. And we're just really here tonight to get an update.
Sure. No, we appreciate it. Closer to home, I was going to tell you, we signed a lease next to Wells Fargo, so a new restaurant, so that'll be coming. Yeah, I'm just not announcing it yet, but yes. So we're very excited with that. But thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and the rest of the ANC. Happy to come back and kind of tell you where we are. You probably, if you've been by, you've seen a lot of activity.
Can I ask you guys
Sure.
to identify yourselves?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Richard. He's Rob.
I'm Rob.
So Richard Lake from Roadside Development.
Richard Lake
Yes.
and Rob,
Wolcheski. Wolcheski.
thank you.
And we're both from Roadside Development. So, so we bought the property a couple of years ago. Fannie Mae was leased it back from us for 2 years. They moved out November 30th. We had our groundbreaking December 1st. What we've been doing the last week, we actually moved one of the heritage trees. I think we're the first one in the city to actually undertake moving a tree. Significant heritage trees. We have 2 more trees that will be relocated. We were going to start on Wednesday, but it's going to get pushed back because of the snow. Probably Thursday. It'll take about 3 days to move the next tree. And the idea is to bring these 3 trees up to the front lawn. So the idea of the front lawn, and I'll show you a quick little video, and then we can take some questions. But basically, moving these substantial trees was really important to the team through our conversations. If most people have never been back behind Fannie Mae, we back up to go over Archibald Park. So the conversations you guys have had earlier about the trails and the working with the Park Service, we have a little insight on that because we've been working with them. So maybe we can help you with that.
Richard, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
It's
can you
okay.
back up a few steps?
I can back up all
And
the way.
just say, we're not a long one, but just give a very brief introduction to what you're talking about so that folks understand.
Oh, okay, I thought that was clear. So 3900 Wisconsin Avenue is the former Fannie Mae headquarter building, and we call it City Ridge. And it is City Ridge.
City Ridge.
And it is about a 10-acre site that sits right across from Sidwell Friends. We previously designated the front building and the front lawn historic. So we took it through and it's designated as historic. We're seeing if the Park Service will actually put it on the National Historic Landmark status, but that's still ongoing. But it is a heritage place under DC law. We have been through all our approval process, so we are fully approved. We have, it's a by right project. except for the historic preservation and the new curb cut that we're putting on Wisconsin Avenue to accommodate our truck access, and also to bring more vehicles off Wisconsin into the project as opposed to going through the neighborhood, which was really important to our neighbors to the south, McLean Gardens. The project was by right, so those are the only approvals that we sought, and those have already been approved. The public space permit has actually already been pulled, and the tree we moved is actually to make room for that curb cut. You probably have heard that this project, I'll run through it, let it run through first, and then I can stop it and move it back and forth and kind of show you things. But this is the 10-acre site, and you can see the size of the excavation below for below-grade parking, and we are signed a lease with a 84,000 square foot Wegmans grocery store. And then we're utilizing that to create a new village in the back. And we have about 215,000 feet of commercial space. You don't include the Heritage Building. If you include the Heritage Building, that could be another 100,000 feet. And then the rest is residential with some affordable housing and also market rate housing. So we've created since we couldn't really use the frontage on Wisconsin Avenue for retail, we created our own little village in the back and create our own sense of place. So that building is a mercantile building. We'll have a restaurant, health club. We're very close to signing a lease with our health club, which we're really excited about. It's one of the best, I think it's rated the #1 health club in the country. And then the Wegmans is seamless underneath, so as you go down Wisconsin Avenue, you don't even know Wegmans is there. And then we've created the courts. We've hired Michael Bergeson, who is a world-renowned landscape architect, to design our front lawn, our courts, and our streets. He's also the architect at National Cathedral. We brought him in early because we wanted the buildings to respond to the architecture as opposed to the other way around. And then Shalom Baranis Associates, Robert Sponseller, is our lead architect. But one of the things we've done is to bring different designers. So you can see there's a collection of buildings. They don't all look and feel the same, so they look a little bit more organic. And we have 2 different interior design teams handling different buildings. So the units in the public spaces don't feel. We have also Trini Rodriguez, who does our rooftops and our courts. So we've got a lot of design talent on this project, and it requires it. It's a significant development. So let me stop you here. So if you look at the garage that's the farthest back here, we are about 85% done tearing that garage down. There was a plume, there was a oil spill, a diesel spill that was underneath that garage that happened under Fannie Mae, 15 years ago. And they really couldn't get to it. So now we're going to get to it. So we've already submitted our plan. There's been monitoring all around it to make sure it didn't migrate beyond, and it hasn't. But to really address it, the garage is going and we're digging that soil out and removing all the contamination. The 1977 building, which is not, which doesn't contribute to the historic, is here. That's what Fannie Mae added in the 70s. The main buildings, so the first building that was built was this wing here, and that was built in 56. And then 2 wings were built in 62. All that is historic. The exterior, not the interior. And the front lawn is part of the historic fabric as well. And of course, with historic, the buildings that abut in the rear are historic and been approved.
Is that McLean Gardens, right?
Yes, so this is McLean Gardens. The other thing to note, and the video is hard to see, but by putting Wegmans below the building, we're lowering this elevation by 20 feet. So we are 20 some odd feet. Our ground floor is 20 some odd feet below McLean Gardens' first floor. So we're down in a well, so to speak. That allows us to kind of daylight the basement, so Wegmans has daylight for a store, and that also allows our buildings to basically settle in. So we kind of migrate down. We have talked to the Park Service, so we are working on a restoration project along our frontage, as well as Donahoe to our north is going to do. And we are going to be going through and cleaning up some of the unbrushed. You're 100% right. The same issues on Globe Archibald as there are in Rock Creek tributaries. They really have been neglected, and a lot of those trails are kind of really extremely rough to deal with, and so the riverbeds have in erosion. One of the hopes of this project is that we are going to retain a significant amount of water on our site. So we are meeting and exceeding our requirements for retention. So not only are we doing bio-retention, we are doing systems, we are reusing and harvesting the water for our cooling towers and also for irrigation purposes. We are seeking a LEED Gold, which is what we did at O Street. And we are looking at some aspirational things around energy, renewables, to supplement some of the energy needs we have.
Richard, one other connection with the park is that stretch there have been a number of safety issues over the years. And I guess I see as a plus if there's a big residential complex here and there's using the park and there's more activity into it. But just to think about what I'm sure you about the access from the development into the park and
The struggle that we have is that we have a 40-foot grade differential even as we go down to the pathways. So we have talked about, instead of, and they will allow us to do something that switchbacks, but we think that would be devastating to kind of the species back here. And there's a couple of heritage trees that are not on our property, but they'll butt, so we don't want to interfere. So we are looking at enhancing the connections that already exist, as opposed to introducing a new one. I know Dono has one, their grades are closer, but you're 100% right. If we could activate more people, dog walkers, residential activity walking through the park and utilizing it, it would be a plus. One of the things that we kind of see as this is almost the beginning of Globe Archibald. It's actually a little bit farther north of us, but it starts here and it finishes. We kind of see us as an arrival place. So one of the ideas is you could ride your bike here. We have a bike valet. You can leave your bike, walk the trails, come back, because they don't allow bikes on that trail, on those trails right now. Not that I think that's going to change. So the other thing is we're doing is a significant amount of parking on site. It wasn't our idea. It was our tenant's idea. So I say that I argued with Wegmans and I lost. So we are building 1,300 parking spaces on site. So the parking is free for grocery store shoppers for 2 hours. So the idea that people are going to park in the neighborhood, they're not. They're going to. It's free and it's guaranteed to be free for as long as Wegmans exists. So, but that's 3 levels of parking below grade. The other thing is that we've done is you can see this road network that we've introduced. Ooh. Okay. So this road network you see, so when it gets to here, it's one way around. It's interfering. So it's one way around. And then the other thing we did is we had a residential access ramp here. We moved that to here and here. So you really don't have any reason to come in through this way. It's really just really for these folks to come in. And if you want to get to the garage, you actually have to go all the way around and come back into the garage. So it's really trying to focus our energy to Wisconsin Avenue. And that's why we brought those access points so close to Wisconsin Avenue. I think the piece that's really important to see is, if you see this ramp access, there's a 14-foot grade differential from the southernmost portion, so it's higher here and falls, actually, to when you go north, and then it picks back up as you get to Tinley. We are kind of diving into that hill with our trucks. So we quickly get these trucks out of sight, out of mind. So what happens is, the trucks come in, we have a new light that we're going to be timing with Rodman So we have a lighted intersection here and a lighted intersection here. You come in, and the trucks come in underneath and service the Wegmans, and they can't really turn around there, so they continue down and they go behind the latest building all the way in the back, and they come back out. So once we did that, we put all the truck activity below grade. And we did this at O Street on Shaw. What it does, it allows us to make the building's 360-degree experience. So now we don't interrupt the buildings with loading docks, we don't have any backs of the buildings, we don't have trash removal. So all that activity that kind of interrupts the pedestrian, interrupts the architecture is all below grade. And it's something we learned to do in malls. So you bury that activity, you get it out of sight, you get it out of mind. And then it also allows us to narrow our streets a little bit. So we worked with the fire marshal to have depressions so the fire trucks could have access in areas to park, but it looks and feels like a sidewalk as opposed to a street. So it allows us to narrow the streets and make the pedestrians the priority. So once you get past here, you're really, this is the curb cut to get into the garage. Once you go past here, you're on borrowed time. It's kind of like being a driver in Siena, Italy. You know, if you've ever done that, you realize you're not, you're allowed to be there, but they really don't want you to be there, and they really look at you badly. So it's designed so Ubers can pick up and people can swing around, but it's really, you can't park in this street. It's really, the pedestrians have the priority, and we get your cars off, out of their way as soon as we can, which then allows us to kind of use this as a place that we can create events and activities. I think that's kind of covers most of, but I don't want to take all too much more time. What you'll see activity-wise over the next 30 days is continuing to remove the garage of the 77 building, and then all the trees will be moved by then. So in 30 days, all the trees will be moved to the front lawn. Then we begin some of the messiest parts. We start digging a hole. We've got about 8 months of digging. And we also then are also doing the structural supports of the historic building to allow us to dig underneath the heritage building so Wegmans has enough room to slide underneath. And we're happy to take any questions or comments or concerns, and also happy to come back to, this is a long-term project and we'll move back. Yes?
How many housing units and how many of those are affordable housing?
Sure. So it's, if we don't make the front building a residential building, we're just under 700, about 687, and 8% of those are affordable.
So we have 56 core units.
So this is rent, lease?
The rental. Right now, the buildings, if we convert the front building to residential, that would most likely be the condo building. But otherwise, everything else is rental. And the other thing is the units are a little larger than what we typically do downtown. We see this as an empty nester housing. We also see young families wanting to be here as well, and young professionals.
If you are attracting young families, what are you doing as far as connections to the schools? In terms of kids being picked up, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. So we've had a couple conversations. For public schools, we haven't really had any conversation on how they would get picked up. Yeah. But we are looking at doing a shuttle for the project itself that would tie it to Tenley Metro. And then Sidwell has actually asked to participate in that because they have a number of their kids that come in and they're trying to get them out of their cars and use Metro.
Would you consider expanding that to include like shuttles for senior services, et cetera?
So, yes, so I'm past president of Iona and also on the board of Iona, currently, and Sally White and I, who's the director, talked about that exact point. So we've been looking at ways that we partner with Iona all the time, and so the idea of being able to bring seniors to shop and Wegmans is all behind it. I mean, they're very interested in any of that kind of connectivity, so yeah. Yes?
Can you talk a little bit about what kind of traffic studies or the dynamics on Wisconsin Avenue? You mentioned adding 2 additional traffic lights.
One additional light.
One additional,
yeah.
our ANC is centered around Connecticut Avenue. We're about to embark on some traffic studies. There are concerns this is already one of the more popular routes to commuting to Maryland, and if there's additional obstacles or things that slow people down in Wisconsin, you know, was it studied, and will that push traffic?
Yeah, so we study traffic extensively as part of our both our large traffic review process and for working through the curb cut with DDOT. And so one of the things that you know that's interesting about this site is that Fannie Mae, and as you know here, Fannie Mae's leaving their property at 4250. There was about 750,000 square feet of office space occupied by Fannie Mae at this intersection between our property, 4,000 Wisconsin to the north, and across the street at 3939 Wisconsin. So a lot of the congestion that was occurring on Wisconsin Avenue was really around sort of those peak commute times, both in the morning and the PM. And what we found is that with our more sort of 24-hour use mix, we were dispersing that traffic across the day, so alleviating some of those morning and PM peak concerns. The other thing, and there's certainly concerns about Wegmans as being a traffic generator. It's a fairly large grocery store. But what's interesting about Wegmans is it's actually pulling cars off the road. There's no one who's getting in their car at 5 o'clock saying, geez, I'm going to go to the grocery store now. So it's a way to actually capture those commuters, get them off of Wisconsin and free up some of that traffic flow. And so in order to make all of that work smoothly, our team's been coordinating with DDOT and their signal department team on retiming some of the intersections. There were some timing issues we studied all the way from Idaho Avenue up to Tenley Circle. So how to rework the timing of those intersections. We are adding left turn signals into our property. So having that left turn signal and that being a leading left turn helps also to break up the queue in Wisconsin.
So there's also this light, if you go to Rodman, is actually where Sidwell gets populated. And their struggle is their left is too short in the morning. And so what we're thinking is we don't really need a left. We don't need a left in the morning to get into our property. We need a left at night. So we're working with Sidwell and their traffic engineers, which is Wells Associates, and ours is Grove Slade. So our controller is, for the new light, is going to control Rodman, the left into Sidwell, left into our property. And so the timing of that is to help Sidwell in the morning have a longer lag to let them more flow go in, and also to be able to let us get a longer lag coming out. The traffic studies that we see is really the impacts are going to be evenings when people are going to go to Wegmans and also weekends. But as Rob said, in the morning, we're actually the opposite. We've reduced the amount of trips coming to the site because people really don't do shopping at a rush hour to go to the grocery store.
That being said, you mentioned retail on the ground floor, and I'm curious if that's going to be, if you have any idea if that's going to be, hosted dining or really retail, as these days people call it. Because I also think, of course, that impacts traffic.
Sure.
What drives people to the area.
Right now, our retail is really related around food and health club and service. There's not a lot of, you need a larger critical mass to make mercantile retail, apparel, housewares kind of work. But we are talking to an interesting home fashion retailer that, if it happens, would be really interesting. Although they don't drive a lot of traffic. They're more designer oriented, but it's an intriguing use. I've been doing retail for, 30 some odd years, and I've never seen it more stress than it currently is. And you're right, most retail is becoming dining options as opposed to what we really perceive as mercantile shopping. Yes, David.
Richard, again, thank you to you and Robert, and I know you've worked a lot with ANC3C and Angela, and I know you've worked with Sidwell, and you may recall I was actually at the Board of Zoning hearing when you guys were doing the curb cut public space, and so I congratulate you more holistically. That I know that's a lot of stuff to get through, and I know you've got a community invite you or like to request that we 3F remain involved with you guys a little bit, maybe a little bit more actively, especially with regard to Sidwell, as you know, that's in my single member district. And, you know, I've heard a lot about the traffic synchronization, and I think that should work, but want to make sure that we're staying in touch on that. Obviously, we have 4,000 Wisconsin coming down the pipe in terms of construction scheduling. Sidwell's probably a few years later, but it would be good to sort of reestablish a connection on this community dialogue, perhaps between 3F and 3C, and just understanding this phasing a bit.
So David, we don't think of ourselves, and Kathy will know this too, when we've done projects before, we're retail guys, so you're our customers. So we don't see this community, there's a line division here. So if you're impacted, we need to understand that, and if there are things that we can do to mitigate that impact, we're certainly happy to discuss that. It's a meaningful project. It's a large project. It has a lot of positives that I think it will bring to it, but it also has some negatives to it. And like any change, you know, our job is to mitigate those as best we can. So,
but we also acknowledge it's a great contribution to the community, and ANCs are always in a tough role of bringing forward community concerns, but also, you know, encouraging thriving, wonderful businesses, and that's clearly what we have here. I think you mentioned about 250,000 square feet of commercial.
215.
215, yep. And that's separate from Wegmans?
No, that's separate from the A building. That includes the Wegmans.
Okay.
So if you take that and you take the health club, which is 30,000 feet, and we have a 60,000 square foot office component that sits in what we call D, which is where the pool was sitting on top of.
Right.
You're about 2/3 or 80% way
I'm just
there.
trying to probe a little bit where the to be determined part of the project.
It's mostly on the street level. It's mostly, there's retail that sits in this point location. We haven't decided. We kind of just kind of pulled back once we did the Wegmans and the health club, and we kind of said, let's see what is the hot concept. One of the things that's really interesting, we did our project in Shaw City Market. I don't know if anybody's been there, but
I used to live in 2F, and you guys did an amazing job.
oh, thank you.
Market and that whole area. So
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you.
And so we've kind of cultivated this relationship with a lot of restaurants that are down there. I mean, Shaw is just rich with restaurants. What's happening is a lot of those restaurants are now thinking about coming up. And so, you know, Mimi's is a great example. That restaurateur active in other parts of the city. So we have had conversations with some really cool concepts that want to come up to do something a little bit different. And we're kind of like just figuring out what's best. We don't see this as a chain. We see this as more of homegrown, kind of like an organic, kind of a shopping, you know, grocery. You know, we have this grocery store that's just like, I don't know if you've been to a Wegmans, but it's not a grocery store. I mean, their wine department is just phenomenal. Their prepared foods is like walking down a European street. It's just experience. And so we want to have the other retailers that hold up to them, that stand up to them. And so we don't have a lot of it, so we're being picky.
A little bit more on the office space, the 60,000 there. Generally speaking, what do you envision happening in there? Is that pretty
High rents, fully leased.
Perfect.
Long term, good annual increases.
I do want to make an introduction to a couple folks with you afterwards.
Sure, happy to. We have put aside some space. You know, it's not law firms. This we can see it in a small architectural firm. We can see maybe a small boutique law firm. We also own a building in Tenley, a little office building we bought. It's an old building, but we bought it, and it's right across from our City Line project we did. And it's fully leased, and there's a real demand for small suites. So we kind of think that could be a play. This building, I will be very honest with you, I don't know what it wants to be yet. I mean, when we first looked at this, I wanted to bring a 4-star hotel with a spa. I just thought, geez, can you imagine weddings and bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs sitting on that? I mean, just, there is no venue like that. But nobody else, none of the hotels agreed with me, so.
boys and girls.
They all liked it, but the hotel wasn't there. So we have a really cool residential idea, but then there's no life to it. There's 66 residential high-end condo units. Then it could stay at office. It could be it could be a cultural arts venue. The front lawn is actually designed to house the stage to do cultural arts. So we've been in conversation with Washington School of Ballet to do performances on the front lawn and youth orchestra. And we actually had the orchestra at our groundbreaking. So to us, it's a great place for schools to have events. If they want to put on a play in the springtime or the fall, I mean, so to us, it needs to be active. And so you see the fountain, it's designed to be an interactive fountain for kids to come and play in like you see down in Georgetown, because the front lawn will not be great if it's just a big open green space like it's been for the last 50, 60 years. So if you have ideas for office users, we are interested. If you have ideas for other uses, we're actually doing we're sponsoring a NAOP design charrette for 5 grad programs. So anyways.
So we probably allotted 20 minutes. I don't mean to superimpose on this, but we do have a couple of questions from the audience. I don't think we need to formally expand the 20 minutes to 30, but let's go ahead and try to capture a couple of audience questions. Teresa, Juanita, and this was.
So is the Wegmans going to sell alcohol?
Yes.
Okay, and so is the Wegmans going to sell alcohol? Competes against alcohol. Anyway, and amenities. What are the? I know you don't have to do any amenities, but you talked about some of the things you were thinking about doing there, events and other programming. Are you going to continue? Are you going to have programming for the community there?
Well, we envision the project to have programming quite often. And that may be as much as, a winter, Christmas market, winter market. It may be festivals, taste of DC. I mean, we haven't even figured out what all this would be.
What's the timeline for the dates of, not dates specifically, but just the timeline of things opening and
Sure.
going on?
So the first thing that's going to open is actually the Wegmans and the building in the middle, this building right here, and then the 2 residential buildings on top. So that's probably spring of 22. 22. Yeah. It's going to take us, we deliver the shell to Wegmans late 21, and it takes them 9 months to build out their store. It's
I was interested in, you're saying that you're going to have restaurants, and I can see that that might work because you're bringing in so many people. You'll get more foot traffic. But one of my disappointments of being a resident of that general area and having a lot of restaurants in my former SMD was that they tended not to stay. They tended to fold. And, you get a restaurant in, and if you're happy with it, and then it's gone.
It's the highest mortality rate of retail.
And so, I think.
Except the zebra room, though. That was, my father would tell you, it was there for 35 years. He would say he kept it there for a while.
Well, like, it was always one of those things where, Fannie Mae keeping alive Ruby Tuesday, and then Fargo Thrill, or whatever it was, there was some other. Yeah. Anyway, there all those places that kept changing because.
The struggle is you need a turn at lunch. Okay, and my father always told me this: you need to turn your tables once or 1.5 times at lunch, and dinner you need to do 2 to 3 turns to make it. And the struggle with restaurants and the activities is that when you pull a Fannie Mae out of a neighborhood and you bring 3,000 people out of your neighborhood, how do you keep that vibrancy going? And so when we looked at this project, to us it needed to be a true mixed-use project that actually it was not going to put all the energy back to 3,000 employees, but it could bring enough of that energy. And then you have to have enough of a collection of restaurants that it becomes a destination.
Right.
That you're willing to go there, even if it's a little late, because the guy down the street may not be waiting as long. And so it is a problem with chef-driven restaurants, because I don't know if you know any chef owners, but their personalities are extraordinarily difficult. Some of them are friends, but still, and then concepts lose their steam. And then they have to be reimagined. We have a wonderful restaurant in Shaw, Community Hall, great chef-driven, opened up with a bang, and now we're working with him. He's a genius as it relates to food, but how do you keep your place relevant? How do people continue to come back to you? And so it's an active event. It's not just put them in and walk away and hope they survive. You got to nurture them a fair amount.
I'd be happy to have restaurants that just has been a concern, but then there's something like Guapo's, which has been very good at capturing both the lunch tray and the evening tray, and people of all ages, absolutely all ages.
Fabulous. Yeah. And Guapo's crosses that boundary where all socioeconomics
Yeah.
and all ages can find something they enjoy.
Any other questions from the audience?
I'm curious as to how you arrived at the number for 8% affordable housing units. I don't know regulations on that, is that per regulation?
Yeah.
Or is that a number you arrived at?
That's an inclusionary zoning requirement. That's a requirement across the city. And then there's a formula that penthouse uses, you get this additional, but since we are by right, so we're not looking for any additional density, we're just follow the 8%. And it's high-rise construction, so concrete construction is at 8%. If you're wood frame construction is at 10%. So it's a requirement by the city.
Just so you know, this is not an RNC.
How did you get permission to move heritage trees?
Well, actually, it's a regulation.
It's required.
It's required. So I'm not going to say that, that's not fair. Some people don't pay attention to that and they pay the fine, which is about 1/7 of the cost associated with moving a tree. So we decided we were going to save these trees. So we brought in an army of arborists, and we identified the trees that were heritage. We worked with the urban forestry and DDOT, and the relocation of the trees is fascinating. It's an amazing feat, and they do it elsewhere, but this is the first time DC. No one else has followed the regulation, so you're supposed to move the trees. You're not supposed to tear them down. But we chose.
Probably encourage people to leave them, not tear them down, but not move them either.
Well, the problem is, you have a tree that's 50, 60 years old and may have another 15, 20 years of life in it. And are you not going to build something that'll last 100 years because of that? So they allow you to relocate those trees. And so it's an ongoing maintenance program to allow the roots to reestablish themselves. But
You started before the recent legislation, though.
I'm sorry, we didn't start before.
No,
No.
The latest heritage.
When we bought the property, it was in.
It was just in place.
Yeah.
I've attended a number of their meetings, and I also walked over and watching the paint dry the other day from the
Yeah.
tree, and
It's like watching ants.
We actually started the process a year ago preparing the trees to move them. So a year before you move them, you go and you trim the roots, you encapsulate the root structure that you're going to then pick up and move. And then it's about a 3-year monitoring process to make sure that the roots then take hold in their new home. And the team that we're working with, I think Richard was mentioning this, and they do this around the country. So this is the group that moved a tree on Augusta National because Tiger apparently was hitting too many great shots and they wanted to block him. They moved a historic tree in I think it's Clemson or Auburn's campus and Villanova, all around the country. So this team comes up from Texas to do this work here in California, and they move massive trees. I saw one in California. I don't know if
Our
it's
trees
right,
are
but-
small compared to some of the trees we have.
So Robert, just maybe closing it again, I just not to grab this, but really the ANC, primarily is interested in construction traffic and traffic going forward, and along with all the other commercial and environmental issues, but that's an immediate goal. I think we can play with you in coordination with Sidwell, especially in my district. So just give you guys, I'm going to be in touch. Any other closing remarks? Thank you for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Late this evening, but congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
I saw it today. This sign of hers is in the opposite side.
Yeah, I think we're going to continue with our agenda, and again, thank you to the project description. Moving on, we're going to go to, I believe this is Caroline's item. This is the Somstock ABRA application. If you want to just quickly, in 1 minute, summarize maybe 30 seconds the operative clause. I think we do a lot of these, so just so the community knows what we're doing here.
Yeah, it's, there's a new startup wine consulting ship, one person, she's just starting it. She needs storage space over at the storage facility in my single-member district. And the settlement agreement that we just concluded with her is basically setting out some operational rules about when they can pick up stuff so that they don't disturb their immediate neighbors, which is Van Ness South. Trying to minimize traffic, their hours of operation, which is basically pickup. They're not vending anything. They're just, storing wine basically. And it is a really small operation right now. I don't know that she really has that much of an inventory. She's really just getting started. So there wasn't anything controversial about it, and we got another business going into Domain. So there we go.
And this pretty much mirrors the other.
Yeah,
Yeah. Are there any questions from the commissioners?
No.
Any questions from the audience? Do you want to make a motion to?
Approve the settlement agreement.
I make a motion to approve the settlement agreement.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 6-0. Thank you, Caroline. Wow, you're 100% already. So we are moving along. We've skipped over the UDC, UPass, et cetera. That's already off the agenda. We will, Andrew, I think, Commissioner Malo, we're
So
going to move to the 19 minutes.
I've circulated the December 2018, by the way, minutes.
You should have corrected that at the outset.
I haven't heard any feedback in
have
terms
no.
of amendments.
They look fine to me.
And so I make a motion to approve the
Second.
December 2018 minutes.
I second it. All those in favor? Well, I guess the commissioners that were here at least. You want to do that 3-0 or 6-0, Andrea?
6-0.
Yeah, have the new commissioners read the
Approved minutes from a meeting they weren't part of?
It doesn't matter.
Sure. Let's do 6-0. Yeah?
It
Okay.
doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's-
Great, thank you. Other business. Commissioner Rutenberg, you want to walk
Yeah,
us through?
just briefly, we have the quarterly financial report, so, I'm looking at Rachel to help me. Do this, so I shared a copy of each's with you. We had some receipts in the quarter, and just for the new commissioners, the ANC fiscal year runs on the districts, which is October 1st to September 30th. We do a couple things on annual, particularly with some of our employee taxes and things, but this is, so FY19 quarter one is the DC fiscal year. We got our district allotment of $3,896, $7.74 interest, $27.47 other. Maybe it's on the next page. What other is return for the unused grant. So 39, 31 and change came in. which made our bank balance 94,900. Our disbursements for the quarter were on personnel and office supplies totaling 2,813, which left us a balance at the end of the quarter of 92,000. We just need to ask any questions, and we need to approve this report, and then
Okay.
David will sign it, and the secretary will certify it, and we submit it to the district, and based on that, when they approve it, we then get our next quarterly allotment. Rachel's not here.
I second your motion.
Hold on, Commissioner.
$377 on December 18th to the former chair.
I'm sorry, I don't have the documents with me.
Okay.
I'm sure I can bring them.
Okay.
Do you have the last report there?
Money
There's
to
a
Pat.
payment for $377.07 to Pat Tchaikovchik.
That was the website for the whole year,
Okay.
last year, G Suite, and we had one other smaller thing. It was all supplies.
Okay.
So how much is the monthly rate for the website?
Around $10 a month.
Is that the one that you're asking? And so we need to talk afterwards whether that can be coming out of, whether it's going to be my credit card or whether that should come some more directly through the ANC. But let's talk afterward about that one. So if that's $120, let's say, for the website, then the remaining $250 is,
He had 6 separate receipts, I have them, you know, if you.
I guess it's already been authorized, but it's good to know
But
generally.
just out of curiosity.
Yeah, sure,
what-
sure,
what are-
absolutely,
what-
yeah. Are there any other questions on this? And Commissioner Nemeth, are you comfortable approving this? Okay, any
Yes.
other questions on the quarterly report?
No.
You want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the quarterly financial report for FY19 quarter 1.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 6-0. Any opposed? 6-0. Okay, any other business?
And being the new treasurer, I failed to do a monthly financial report, which I think we usually have. But you'll have one next time for 2 months.
And what is this? Is this something we need to talk about?
This is related to the $25. We're doing
Oh.
like $185 of paperwork to pay
Yep,
for $25.
okay. Any last remaining items?
We need to sign the settlement agreement, execute the,
Sure, we'll do that afterward.
because the guy printed it out.
Oh, we don't have it printed.
No, I haven't gotten around to it yet.
Well, let's adjourn the meeting.
Okay, yes, okay. I make a motion to adjourn.
My second.
0.
Aye.
We are adjourned, thank you.